Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zerl. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick, and we may have a special guest later on. Technical difficulties, assuming those don't happen. Anyway, got lost in my normal intro. Visit us at ihatecritics.net, everyone's a critic podcast.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. My handle's CriticsPod. Subscribe to the show at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Alexa, all your podcatchers. Rate and review the show. We will read your review on the air. Let us know where you left it so we can go find it, especially if you're in another country. And you'll get a Blu-ray.
Actually getting something very special this time, because the next person who gives us a 5-star review on their podcast app and tells us about it is going to get a 4K plus Blu-ray copy of I Spit on Your Grave.
Yeah, and along with that,
now
go ahead.
I don't love that movie, so maybe for some people that's not a prize, but for someone out there, at least having it in your collection is like something that you can just talk about as a conversation piece.
And we did that on Patreon, and I thought it was actually a very good episode. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I think we all kind of came away with a greater appreciation of that movie and lesser appreciation of the one that came afterwards. Anyway, but if you want to be part of our Patreon's group, go to patreon.com/criticspod. It's the best way to help support the podcast. The Nirvana podcast is out there where we go track by track through Nevermind, which was a lot of fun, and it's very real. It's not critical. I mean, it was more like our honest reaction to the song and our honest opinions, as opposed to, we didn't like think it through and write down notes and anything like that. We just went through the track by track and just kind of let you know where we were when we heard them and where we are now. And I don't know, it was kind of neat, less polished than this podcast, if you can. But I think that's a good thing. I think so. Better. I meant that as a good thing. I enjoyed the conversation, and coming up in November will be Metallica, the Black Album. We're going to go over that one as well. That is already recorded in the bag as well. And if you want our podcast merch, head over to ihatecritics.net and click on the podcast merch link, TeePublic, in the right-hand corner, or you can go to TeePublic.com and search for Critics Pod. Get yourself some.
We're at the official Willem Dafoe fan club, but we could be.
If you, which is weird, you'd think it'd be Nick Cage at this point.
We've not done a Nick Cage shirt.
Oh my God, we got to do something with American Beauty and Nicolas Cage.
It's got to have testicle bombs.
That's not a good thing. Nowhere near as fun as I thought testicle bombs would be.
Yeah, that's true.
But we'll have to
Jeff
think
get
of
to work
something.
though on testicle bombs.
But I don't want to. I don't want to see him in Roses. I think he needs to be the Kevin Spacey character, not the Mina Savari character. I mean, it'd be funny in Roses, I guess, but it's also that's been done to death.
Yeah.
I don't know. We got to figure something out.
Maybe him kissing Chris Cooper. Nicolas Cage kissing Chris Cooper.
I'm all for that. I just trying to. Is there I don't know. I'm sure Jeff can come up with something good.
Yeah,
he's been shitting all over Rob Zombie lately on social media. So,
so you and Jeff aren't friends right now?
It's funny. But no, I'm not. Look, I like Devil's Rejects.
That's about him casting his wife and everything. Is that right?
Yeah. Which, why would you not
cast your wife? I don't care.
Right. Enjoy what you're doing. That's what I say. Anyway, let's get on to our podcast. We do have a guest joining us, so let's try to get the other movies out of the way before he gets here for Dune. And let's start with Jason Biggs and The Subject.
The Subject stars Jason Biggs, best known for American Pie, and the story of a documentarian, an award-winning documentarian with a deep, dark secret related to the fate of the young man who was the subject of his award-winning and very successful documentary. This young man was somebody who wanted to join a gang. He ended up being killed by the very people who were those gang members who were supposed to be welcoming him. And there's an even bigger secret at play here, for at least for the documentarian, one that somebody wants to get to. Somebody is filming him and his girlfriend and him and his assistant. And the situation there is very fraught because him and his assistant may be getting into a thing. And so there's a lot going on here. This is a very complicated movie. Aunjanue Ellis plays the mother of the young boy who was killed. And, oh boy, she is amazing. She's just incredible. And this movie is so daring. In the final act, the director, Laney Zapoy, makes this decision to just boil it down to these two characters in one spot for the entirety of the third act. And it's just a conversation, an argument that turns violent, turns brutal. It's two people who are going for the jugular on one another. And it's shocking. It's exciting. It's like few directors take this kind of risk in giving your entire third act over to one thing in one spot to build to your ending. And I loved that. I loved the choice. I bought in on this big time. Jason Biggs, even with him being more of a seemingly comedic actor, he really, it actually plays in his favor because you're kind of underestimating him throughout. And in the end, that kind of underestimating him really kind of pays off in him holding his own a little bit, especially against a powerhouse like Aunjanue Ellis, who's really coming for him and really seems to have everything on her side. It's really an impressive movie, and I really enjoyed this a lot.
Well, that's frustrating because I turned it off. I found it borderline unwatchable. I didn't get to the third act though.
Wow!
I thought the chemistry between him and everybody was off. I don't think him and his wife were very good. Because I don't think him and his assistant were very good together. I did get to the part. Is there a
problem with him, or?
Well, no, I thought the chemistry he's the common denominator, I guess, but I actually thought they were actually pretty bad. Now, Aunjanue Ellis, I did see that when her first scene in the movie where she pretends to be Oprah, or pretends to be Colin from Oprah, and then shows up at his house. Yeah. That was good. But again, that was at that point I was just like, this is just clunky and bad, and so I turned it off. But I have no comment on the third act because I didn't see the third act. So it is possible that could have won me back over. It sounds interesting. I mean, it's a neat premise. I just thought the movie was a little clunky for me. But again, I didn't get to where it got daring yet. I mean, it's a daring idea, I guess, and I like the idea and I like the question, what is too far, how do you live with yourself by exploiting other people, and there's a lot going on there, right? And I like all of that. I just thought the movie itself was. But
did you find out what his actual secret was?
No.
So
I didn't finish the movie.
There's another great scene between him and the kid that's also that's really, it's a flashback within the thing. And
was that where he was saying the kid wanted to be a documentarian? Yeah, I thought that was a great scene. I that was like the one. I guess it was getting better now that especially if you say the third act was
the third act
good.
Is awesome. Yeah,
that was an interesting scene, but even then it was just kind of, I don't know. It was interesting. I don't know if it was great, but I mean, I'm curious, so I may go back and finish it to see what that third act was all about. But
it's just this tremendous two actors just going back and forth at each other's throats, and it's filled with a good deal of tension because she kind of puts a clock on what's happening in a way that's very interesting. And I dug it. I did. I thought this was a terrific movie. Awesome.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad to know that it got better. It is available now if you want to rent it, though, on all your iTunes, Apple or Amazon, anywhere you can rent movies. The United States of Insanity.
Yes, and this is actually debuting as a Fathom event tonight as we speak around the country. It's an examination of the careers of the Insane Clown Posse and also the legal wrangling that surrounds the Insane Clown Posse when it comes to the Juggalos, and the Juggalos being treated as a street gang, which their fans, the Juggalos, are technically, according to the FBI, considered a street gang, which is a strange designation. But this movie is very fair about examining that idea, because there are people who have gone ahead and used the Juggalo label while committing crimes, and you could say that under the strict definition put forward by the FBI of a gang being three or more people, or one to three people engaging in a criminal action together under a banner, I guess is how they kind of define it. I guess you could stretch that to its most literal perspective to call Juggalos a gang, because groups of people have called themselves Juggalos and have committed crimes. It's a bit of a stretch, but I liked how the movie was fair in examining that idea. They talk about what a gang is and how you define it. And, that at the same time, it does come back around and kind of demonstrates how silly that is, because Juggalos are just fans of a rap group that happens to have horror lyrics. I mean, really, the music of ICP is built upon hardcore horror movie violence. It's borderline comical just how violent it becomes. This would be like considering people who wear hockey masks on Halloween a gang, because this is a horror movie in song form. And so they do also make the point that, I mean, you want to get real technical about the FBI definition of gangs. I'm in a gang right now because I'm wearing Cubs jersey. And there's like 3 or 4 or more of me doing it. And if any one of us commits a crime, I guess you could technically say we're a gang.
You're the baseball Furies.
By the strictest definition of what the FBI calls a gang.
Right.
So this movie is about that, and it has some real world consequences. They talk to a guy who is a huge Juggalo, big Juggalo. He raised his kids as ICP fans, and he's raising 2 kids, and he's got a third child. And this third child was taken from him early on by the mother. The mother then gave the child up and didn't want him, and he wanted him. He was like, okay, well, she doesn't want to raise my kid. I want to raise him. They came and they did a look around his house, and they looked at his ICP room, and they saw that he had Juggalo tattoos, and they decided that he couldn't have his kid because he was a Juggalo, and because Juggalos are technically considered by the FBI a gang.
Yeah. It's weird because I don't like them, but at the same time, you got to kind of appreciate the loyalty that they made a community out of. It's more of a community than a gang.
They call themselves a family.
Right. And it's neat. They have a big festival every year, the Gathering of the Juggalos, and that, again, it's something I'd never, ever go to. But they're able to pull that off. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Do they go into... Because I think one of them has, is in heart failure now, or some heart disease or something like that. Do they go into that at all?
I don't think they go into it very deeply. I think they might have touched upon it, but they didn't say much about it.
I mean, it's fairly new. I think they're doing one last tour or something like that. And the more I see them as they've gotten older, their interviews they're way more coherent and just grown up, I guess, compared to
they've
what they were.
They've been forced to kind of grow up in a way by this whole legal thing.
Yeah.
Did you know there are Juggalo lawyers, like people who are lawyers who are also Juggalos?
I'm not surprised.
And they actually hired a couple of them, and then they got the ACLU involved, and they're still fighting this. But they demonstrated pretty strong real world effects of this. Like Juggalos, you've got this little hatchet man symbol that they use, and if you have that on your car, you're more likely to be pulled over by the cops. And they've proven that that's true. Cops do look for that as a gang symbol. But it's also a thing where this seems to happen to people who are poor, and poor people who, of course, are the main kind of fans of ICP. It just that correlation between the FBI going after poor people just seems to kind of come together there a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, why can't they go after Star Wars fans? Why do they go after clowns?
Hey, no.
I mean, you put enough people in Darth Vader masks and one of them commits a crime, technically they're a gang.
Josh just walked into some ICP talk.
Hi, Josh.
Greetings, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Is it a good connection, though?
You're a little muffled, but you can understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
that's
you're
good.
fine.
I have my Bluetooth headphones on so that I can hear you guys better, but... All right, I'm on. Hello,
Hi.
gentlemen.
Hey, so are you a fan of ICP?
No.
You know what ICP means.
ICP is our Insane Clown Posse.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
There's a whole thing about it, like a documentary, right?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're
Thank you for butting in.
No.
In that case,
No.
We're finishing up on it. I do want to recommend a YouTube video of, I think if you just search ICP and Limp Bizkit.
Oh, Lord.
I should stop there, and that's enough for you to be curious.
Yeah. They touch on that in the
It really-
documentary.
Oh, they do?
too.
About the
briefly.
The drop kick?
The failed drop kick.
Oh, that's amazing.
He tried to drop kick Fred Durst.
And he
Josh, does that make you an
missed.
ICP fan?
But he,
Well, I mean, everybody should drop kick to Fred Durst. But
I'll
at the same time.
I will tell you what, though. I don't know if you've seen Fred Durst lately. He's got this song called Dad Vibes, Limp Bizkit does. It is the best dad song ever. Like, I love listening to it when I pick my daughter up from her boyfriend's house or her friend's house. It's the most embarrassing thing ever. They're finally understanding I highly recommend listening to it. It's hilarious. And they're in on the joke finally. So anyway, enough Limp Bizkit, enough ICP. We are right where we need to be, where Josh calls in right as we're going to talk about Dune, the new movie on HBO Max.
Dune stars Timothée Chalamet as the prince in a family of royalty that operates their own planet, and now they get to operate another more profitable planet that has spice. Oscar Isaac plays his father. Rebecca Ferguson is his mother. Jason Momoa is his faithful protector, as is Josh Brolin. Zendaya shows up eventually. I sound like I'm being funny about this. I really like this movie. This is actually really good. Directed by, of course, Denis Villeneuve, who is an absolute genius, who somehow takes a movie that is going to end in a way that leads to a second movie, and it doesn't feel like it. It feels like he's told an entire story in this first chapter, and he's ended it in a way that feels just right. Like, the pacing of this is so perfect. I really love the look of the movie. I love the action of the movie. Timothée Chalamet really delivers on this role. You kind of think he's going to be too slight. You kind of think that slight, less than masculine frame of his is going to hold him back, but he really develops. He grows up as the movie goes along, and I was really impressed with the way they built his character to the point to where he gets. I really loved everything about this. I like the mysticism of it. I like the action. I understood it all, which is a big step forward from the original, which is kind of much more silly and convoluted. But yeah, I'm all for this movie.
Do you want to go, Josh?
Oh, why don't you go ahead?
All right. I like it in the way that I like Lord of the Rings. Like, it's No, it's nothing bad. You got an amazing filmmaker making a story I don't care about. If let's put the Star Wars movies and the Lord of the Rings and Dune. I mean, I'll definitely think Dune and Lord of the Rings are far superior to Star Wars. You have a better filmmaker involved, and I think Dune's better than Lord of the Rings. But I just don't like. It's just not for me. And it's like I I could follow it. It's really well made. It looks great. Everything about it's perfect. It's just long, and about subject matter I could care less about. So, but it's good. Everything about it's perfect, just like, the Lord of the Rings movies. So I have nothing bad to say about it. I just,
But I do have a question for both of you, at least to start out with. How did you see the movie? Because I think that's an important aspect of it.
I saw it on HBO Max and on the IMAX.
I saw it on the IMAX.
Okay, and I also saw it on IMAX. So at least we all have a similar perspective on it. The last Villeneuve movie that I saw in IMAX was Blade Runner 2049, and I remember sharing with you guys back in 2017 how the speakers seem to be coming off of the wall for that movie. Another Hans Zimmer type of score, just like this movie. I wanted to be blown away by visual and audio stimuli whilst being immersed in a lore or a mythology that I actually know very little about. I saw the original Dune many, many years ago and remember very little. And people have tried to turn me on to whatever sci-fi put out 20 years ago, and I don't have any interest in that at all. But what I asked of the film, it accomplished. So much so that I kind of drifted to sleep at one point for I know at least a minute. It's because my senses were just blown out of the back of my head. There are some sumptuous images and sounds and battles and scenes in this movie that are exactly what I was hoping for. And really, I kind of, dare I say, I needed them. I needed to see science fiction in the theater again in the way that I saw it. Is sitting in the second row of an IMAX theater. To me, it's the maximum way to experience this movie. And all of this stuff, Bob, I might be with you in saying that I don't care because it's yet another mythology that I would have to take on. And I've heard all of the stories of how the first book is really the good one, but there's 75 other books or whatever there is. There's a lot there. And it could tune me out. Maybe the book would get me tuned out. I don't know. But this movie, in the subtle way that it tells a really simple, very, very tried and true story of, it's basically just every other science fiction story, but in its own particular way. I've read this week how George Lucas took a lot of the Frank Herbert book and injected it into Star Wars. Well, of course, you can see that everywhere in this movie. But everything seemed to be just about right here. I'm highly impressed by this one, and I was so excited to hear today that number 2 got greenlit.
That's good to hear. I mean, it's pure perfection. I just don't care. I've never been a science fiction guy though, so that plays part of the role. That said, I think I would take this over Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. I mean, obviously I would use this to fight any Star Wars fans because clearly Lucas stole from this story so much so. And
he stole from Jodorowsky, but we'll get to that.
He did that too, but I mean, clearly with all the worlds, and it's from this science fiction story from Herbert. Was it Frank Herbert that wrote it? Yeah, he stole from that as well. But the best thing that ever happened to Jodorowsky was not making that movie. But I mean. Beautiful movie, sounds great, everything about it, the performances, everything was perfect. I love Denis Villeneuve, and part of me worries that he's going to be just a better Christopher Nolan as opposed to a guy that does a wide variety of things. If he just keeps going on the sci-fi hole, good for him. He's great at it, but I want to see him do everything. I want more enemies. And I'll take Arrival. That's still sci-fi, but there's still some great storytelling in here. This is more impressive in just that this probably isn't an easy movie to make, and you found a way to, one, break it up into the story into two movies and make it seamless, and two, make it watchable and not confusing with as much as, even watching the documentary, I was worried I'd have a hard time following along, but I didn't at all.
It's incredible. Yeah, the way he breaks it down so simply, and he makes it flow so beautifully. The one scene to the next is just it's just so well put together. The editing is seamless. The changes of scenery are seamless, and you can follow all of it. And the characters are well written. They're not they're not laying everything out for you in dialogue. They're letting you immerse yourself within this material and not stopping every 5 minutes to introduce each other. You don't hear Oscar Isaacs have to introduce himself to his own son or anything like that. That happens so often in so many other movies like this. I appreciated that. I just appreciated so much of this. I like Jason Momoa's performance here. I knew every beat of what was going to happen, but yet it's Jason Momoa. I thought maybe he could kill an entire room of bad guys for like 2 hours, and I was okay watching it.
One thing. Go ahead.
Rebecca Ferguson, though, for me, that is the best, most complexly written role, and to give that to her and to have her stand out amidst this cast that is mostly male. She gets the biggest beats, and she gets the biggest amount of backstory, and she does incredible amounts with it, to the point where at times you're not sure what she's all about. she's kind of mysterious, but then she's also very loyal to her son. I really enjoyed that. Oscar Isaac is just Oscar Isaac. I mean, the guy can do anything and just look regal and royal and dignified and still and like exciting. And then Josh Brolin, I mean, he's growing into becoming the best actor at being grizzled of any actor in the world.
Yeah, one thing I thought was really neat about it was it seems like he learned from Blade Runner, in that as great as Blade Runner was, it definitely was made for like the diehard fans, and it wasn't made for a mass audience. It's a way more watchable movie for your average movie viewer, I would say. Don't get me wrong, I love Blade Runner, but I mean, my biggest complaint was he made a high budget flop, even though it was great. And this is way more. It seemed like he was aware of that. And maybe I'm just adding that, bringing it to this, but this seemed like way more watchable for an average movie fan who could get into something like this.
One of the things that I read this week talked about Villeneuve as somebody who's a humorless director, and I've heard this kind of phrase thrown about before by the proprietor of the Ebert website originally, saying that certain films were just too dark or humorless in general. And I want to think about that. Do you guys find that this is a humorless, joyless film at all?
I didn't.
Because I did not. No. It's too vibrant. It's too full of like promise and hope and villainous versus hero. There's a lot of color in this movie. There's a lot of subtle humor, in fact, I think, amongst all of the characters. It was unfortunate to read something like that when a director like Villeneuve, who's making serious things and, to me, grounded characters, when they say that that's humorless, it really rubs me the wrong way. How can I possibly look at Enemy and think that there wasn't humor in that movie? Is it darkly funny? Sure, but it's funny still in certain moments. It's not the kind of gag humor that we see in a lot of blockbusters.
I think where that comes from, I think this is the fact of a European director working in what we all just sort of assume is an American idiom, and when you don't understand the American way of speaking and you push your characters to be more serious or to be somewhat more European in approach, that's where humorlessness comes in, and it really is kind of a misinterpretation of humorlessness.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think it's when you make a movie as ballsy as Enemy, you're going to divide that audience instantly. And so you're going to go to words like humorless or something like that when you're on the other side of it. You need to find that insult. Even Arrival, for that matter, has a ballsy element to it that will divide audiences. I don't think your average sci-fi fan is going to watch Arrival and be like, "This is amazing." It's more for a movie buff. And then Blade Runner is just a full-on love letter to that fandom, which is small compared to the massive world. So he's got 3 movies right there that aren't easily accessible to the average just viewer,
Right.
And
if you're going to call something humorless, Prisoners would be humorless. I'll give you Prisoners.
Maybe Sicario.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I guess Sicario. Yeah, it's a whole piece that's just moody. The whole thing is just mood and dread, and fit into this idea of a military type of film. But to me, it wasn't. It's still gorgeous. I don't know. When I think of humorless, I'm thinking lack of anything vibrant, be it picture, sound, dialogue, anything void of joy. And in Dune, all I felt was joy the entire time. Like, oh, this is like maximum filmmaking effort here. Filmmaking 101 for blockbusters. And you know what? It's doing really well too, at least in terms of expectations and overseas. And I couldn't help but thinking the entire time that I was watching it, gosh, I hope that this is successful so that Bob doesn't get mad at Villeneuve.
Well, and I am glad it is successful because he's one of my favorite directors, and I will see the sequel. When I say I don't care about it, I mean it in that I'm not going to go back a lot. This isn't going to be a rewatch movie that I make routine like I do Arrival. I love watching that movie. Blade Runner even. But this one is just more, it's a world I'm not as into, and I spent the whole week trying to get into it. And this is...
No one can question your effort.
To the point where I pushed back the classic we've been wanting to do for a long time because I wanted to get all the Dune stuff in. I think this movie is pure perfection, and I am so happy he nailed it. But back to the humorless thing, it's just like, think of all the, like, me and Terrence Malick or Josh and a couple, some of the actors he doesn't like. You don't like when they rub you a wrong way. It's hard to. You automatically have a stigma on that person, and it's hard to be won over. And this Denis Villeneuve definitely has that. That's how good he is, and I think that's any great director divides an audience. That's why Spielberg is just kind of, he's great for the mass audience, but he's not. He's U2, as Sean would say.
He's Garth Brooks,
right? And there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. Sells a lot of tickets.
Right. But this is, I don't know. I'm just impressed. I'm impressed with the movie as a whole. And I would love to see it surpass Star Wars. I know it never will. Because I think it's far superior. And I think it's better than Lord of the Rings too. But it reminds me of Lord of the Rings in that it has a history. It has a source material, and you're bringing in a Class A director to come in and try their hand at the world, and he knocked it out of the park.
It's big and it's risky, and you've got multiple characters here who are above the title who are not really in the movie, and I wasn't like I was kind of okay with that because it kind of let me know like there's another one of these, because that they didn't cast Javier Bardem, Zendaya, and Dave Bautista to not use them. So
right.
Those guys are going to be a big part of that second movie.
Yeah, they both have action figures, so totally they're going to be in the next one.
So they just now greenlit it, so we're going to have to wait another 5 years to see it.
2023.
Really? I guess this has been out
Sean's
ready
right
for a
about
while.
It has, and Jason Momoa has been quoted as saying that there is a much longer cut of this particular movie if they wanted to release it. But sure. But what I'm thinking of is whatever they need to do for the sequel here. Villeneuve has said it's ready to go. So they're invested in this world already. They probably have a bunch of footage already shot for the first part of the film. It's nice that we won't have to wait quite that long.
That's very cool.
If you don't mind, I'd like to add just one more thing to this retrospect here. In the sand itself, the colors of sand and the arid nature of it and the lack of life associated with that has always made me kind of like get really bored of it before I even get into it. Even with Star Wars taking place in a lot of sand type settings, I've always been kind of bored with it. And in this movie, somehow he makes sand sexy. And what I mean by that is the spice is kind of like embers flowing throughout the air, right? There's that part of it. Then the sand trembles in something I haven't seen before when they get the big sand worms going through and you can see the vibrations in the sand. And it moves also when people are being engulfed by it. It reminds me of the same kind of fear I had as a kid of quicksand. And so all of a sudden Villeneuve adds this dynamic to something that has been so drab for so long in movies. And I just couldn't help but note that if somebody can make something so simple, so unique as a character of its own, then it's just something to celebrate. That's all that I have.
I do wonder if it's also like technology kind of catching up to it as well. The technology of cinematography and the technology involved in capturing something like that the way they did, and some experimentation. Because I mean, there's a lot of movies have featured sand over the years, and you're right, it's never looked quite this beautiful. Aside from, I guess people would argue that that Peter O'Toole movie had great sand.
I suppose. But it's really the beauty of the actors playing Arabs, that really set it off to me.
Yeah, no, I did find those scenes with the butthole worms, the way they moved.
Fuck you, Bob.
Watch it again. But no, you're 100% right. The way it's kind of a new way of doing quicksand in a lot of respects, and it was very effective and very intense, and it just made for some great action, I thought.
It also does take advantage of men's fear of the butthole.
Yes, I was scared. I'm 42. It's going to get scarier from here on out.
Yeah, I haven't had that done yet. I keep trying.
Best wishes, sir. Best wishes.
I keep trying to get him to do it, and he's like, not yet. You got to wait a couple more years. I'm like, okay.
Never had anybody eager for this before.
Anything else on Dune? I mean, obviously, we have a lot of other Dune things to cover.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I can't wait for the next one.
So far, I'd call this my favorite movie of the year. And then again, it's not saying a whole lot from my perspective. I've basically just seen the blockbusters that have come out in the theaters. Haven't seen much of anything streaming-wise, etc. And been rewatching a whole lot of other things. This is definitely my favorite film experience of 2021 thus far. I'm looking forward to seeing another Sand movie. It sounds awesome.
I do got a question for you, Josh. Will this crack your top 100? Because this movie seems more up your alley than any of ours. And we all like it, but Like,
what I can comment on, it's not in my top 100, right? So I'm not as deep into this particular mythology, but I saw Fellowship of the Ring in 2001, and then all of a sudden, the world was all things Lord of the Rings to me for a short period of time. With this one, I'm excited enough about it that I've looked up the past projects to see who played what in what, and what's coming. I didn't look at that so that I could be excited by the news, but I'm considering reading additional books, but also I like cinematic experiences a bit more than books. So I'm interested enough that it's got me thinking about it 3 days out now. I can see this becoming a thing for me because I'm already that interested in it. I don't think that it would ever rival Star Wars.
The bigger question, Josh, and the one I think that will define what Bob is getting at, will you buy Dune toys?
Listen, just because I was checking them out today online doesn't mean I purchased any of them. However, McFarlane Toys did make Baron Harkonnen, and if you feel like checking it out at some point, not that you're into looking at toys, but it's such a well done figure. It's so gross and weird looking. Toys don't usually look that cool. But am I going to collect any of them? Nah, I don't have enough room.
I joke about that, but if I actually had money, I would buy a lot of these things. So it's a glass house. It's totally a glass house.
Ah, I would let you know when Target has them on clearance because they've sat there months and months and months.
He'll be stuck with a Josh Brolin character, and that's it.
Oh, see, Josh Brolin's character does not have a figure yet. There's only 4 of them. There's Lady Jessica, and then Paul, and then Javier Bardem's character somehow, and then Duncan Idaho, Jason Momoa. Then there's the Baron Harkonnen deluxe figure, which is like twice as big. And then if you get those other 4 figures, you can build the Dave Bautista figure. Ooh.
So it's like Thundercats or whatever, or
you're thinking maybe of Voltron.
I don't know. They're all the same.
4 figures has a piece with it, and if you get all of them, you can build Dave Bautista.
Or you just go
so withhold your excitement, basically.
Bob is already trying to push this information out of his brain so he doesn't retain it.
Well, I'm just waiting for like 8 years from now when Josh is like, let's watch the 4-hour version of this.
If my time isn't already taken up by watching 4-hour-long cuts of Dances with Wolves and Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet, yes.
Anything else before we move on to Jodorowsky's Dune?
Thank you, Josh.
And you're more than welcome to hang out as long as you want, Josh. I guess it's up to you. Whenever you want to jump on,
I do.
Off.
I really appreciate you guys having me on, especially because I really wanted to know your thoughts about it. It kind of enraptured me. I'm going to back out now so that I can make really poor dinners for my child and wife. So have a good evening, gentlemen.
You too.
Right.
Thanks for coming on, Josh.
Use plenty of spice. Plenty of spice.
I like it. Bye.
All right. Bye. All right. That was fun.
Yeah.
And
it's great to hear from Josh.
Yeah. And I telling you right now, 5 years from now, this is in this top 10. Jodorowsky's Dune.
We wanted to just go as deep on Dune as possible. There's a lot of Dune out there. We weren't going to go to TV or nothing. We're not crazy, but this one's been out there for a while. It's, I think 2013 was when they made this, and I've wanted to see it since then, and just never had the opportunity or the good reason to. And then, with Dune coming up, we kind of thought about it and then put it off because Dune kept getting put off, and now here we are. We finally are. This mythical movie that people have talked about, film lovers have talked about for years, that Jodorowsky, the legendary director Alejandro Jodorowsky, was going to make Dune. And he had everything he needed except for just that last couple of $1 million to actually do it.
The last couple of $1 million.
And he had everything he wanted. He had a full storyboard. He had a full crew on board. He had everything. And then it just never happened, and it became this sort of mythic thing. Like, Jodorowsky was going to do this amazing Dune, and would it have been amazing? And we'll never know because it never got made. But it's fascinating to think about. This documentary is really interesting. Whether you believe Jodorowsky or not, it could have pulled this off and made it good. Is certainly a question. He had a lot of big ideas, though, and he's a guy who's always had a lot of big ideas. El Topo is a lot of really big ideas. It's a wild goddamn movie. I don't like it, but it's big, it's loud, it's out there.
When I saw that, my big thing was it wasn't big and wild. I was expecting it to be even more out there. Now, the other movie, which I hadn't seen, was the Holy Mountain or whatever. That looks way out there.
Well, that needs to be a classic.
All right, but with Jodorowsky's Dune, you and Josh had me interested in this when we started bringing it up on the podcast years ago, and I definitely liked the documentary quite a bit, and I didn't know who he was, and then I'm like, oh, this is the El Topo guy, which I don't know. It is really fascinating it's always that argument about letting an artist be an artist, but it also costs millions of dollars to be an artist. So
right.
Where does this responsibility begin and end? And, he just brought on everybody who went on to become somebody. He had some of Carpenter's guys. He had, what's the dude's name from Alien?
Geiger.
Yeah. They had him. Everybody in this movie went on to be A-list, or at least their movies they were involved in were A-list, and you can see all of the influence that the idea that what this wanted to be became. I mean, Star Wars is all over this movie. Aliens is all over this movie. Alien is all over this movie. Every sci-fi movie from the 80s is all over this movie.
They use great clips to show you, like, hey, here's exactly where they stole this from. And, I mean, Lynch's Dune stole from this movie very, very blatantly, without even, not very well, but they did steal, a lot of the imagery that Jodorowsky came up with, that they stuck into that movie.
But his take on the Lynch movie was amazing. And
very, very funny.
And I've always, I know there was a rumor that Lynch was going to do Return of the Jedi, and if you have a studio involved, you're going to get whatever Dune was in 1984, which we'll get to in a second.
Yeah.
But I love that he hated the movie, he thought it was hilarious, it was bad, and then he didn't blame David Lynch because he knew the studio got involved, and I think he knew the person who produced it, who also kicked him off of it.
Yeah. De Laurentiis.
Yeah, so he knew this was a piece of shit. But the whole thing was fascinating, and I don't know how you live up to what he wanted to do.
It's so exciting because he was doing a thing that I've always wanted to do. And I did this as a kid, like in every movie I made, where I would come up with the soundtrack to the movie as I was making the movie in my head.
Yes.
And he had this idea to have like each of the planets represented in Dune be represented by a particular band. Like Pink Floyd was going to be on the side of the good guys, and this French metal band was going to be I think it was Molten. Is going to be like the voice of the the Harkonnens, and I thought that is such a cool idea. I love that.
And they were all going to do it. Orson Welles was going to be in it at one point. I mean,
yeah, man, as Baron Harkonnen, no less. And yeah, the outfit, I just could not even imagine what he would have looked like in the outfit that Jodorowsky created.
But
I just so wanted to see that.
I do, but how do you not get Marlon Brando and Alan Doc Monroe? Because he didn't want to be in the movie. The only reason he was going to do it is because they were going to feed him. And from his favorite restaurant.
Then Salvador Dali was going to be in the movie too.
Yeah.
This is a weird. There's this whole weird, like almost derailing the entire documentary just to talk about trying to get Salvador Dali to play a character who really isn't all that is entirely. Literally, like Villeneuve's Dune doesn't even use that guy. Like he's there, he's mentioned, but he's like talked about. Other people talk for him. You don't even see him. The character that Dali would have played in this version of Dune.
Yeah, yeah. But I still go back to, you talk about everybody who stole from us, but the people who were creating it also went on to take their creation here and put it elsewhere. Specifically, oh my God, I forgot his name again. The dude from Alien, H.R. Geiger.
H.R. Geiger.
He, flat out, just the alien from this movie.
Right.
And I think that's really cool, but I think it did more by going the way that it went, by touching all these different movies rather than being in one. I don't know that this... Part of me wonders, would it have been Star Wars before Star Wars? And maybe. But it might have been too complicated. Star Wars, part of why Star Wars works so much is because of how simple it is.
Yeah, and the thing about the idea that Jodorowsky was going to make anything that would be remotely mainstream, I just don't see it. I see him making a version of Dune that like 10 people are going to watch and enjoy. Imagine Dune from the guy who did El Topo, and you're just kind of like, put those two things together for a moment and think about how that's probably not going to be a mainstream movie. And it would need to be at the price he was asking for.
But it's fucking weird because they go and get the guy who did Eraserhead in Elephant Man or whatever. I don't even know if he'd done that one yet. I think he had.
Eraserhead was 80, I thought.
Yeah, Eraserhead was definitely already done.
After this.
No, this is 84 was the one when Lynch did. So, yeah. But, why then you want to get another weird guy to make Dune, and you just get... You mean you want to go there?
I guess, yeah. We don't have much of a choice.
I don't even know what the fuck this is. We've kind of backed off the 91 movies lately for no real reason other than we just didn't watch them.
They're just really bad right now.
Yeah.
We'll get there at the end of the year. We'll go back to it. But right now, the 91 movies are they're so bad and so completely forgotten that it's hard to talk about them. Highlander The Quickening was a highlight of this weekend.
Well, I thought,
if that tells you anything.
I thought Nicole Kidman's Full Frontal and Billy Bathgate was the highlight.
Fair enough.
Looking into a mirror with the camera from behind her, so you got the front and the back. It's just like gratuitous as gratuitous gets.
So creepy. Yeah,
it's creepy now, but when I was 16, it was awesome.
Look at this poster. What is that on the front of Kyle MacLachlan's pants? Is that a testicle bomb?
Oh my God! It looks like Nicolas Cage's costume in that movie we watched, Prisoners of the Dead or whatever.
Prisoners of the Ghostly.
It doesn't matter.
Oh my God.
But
yeah.
One of my biggest complaints about a lot of movies that come out in 91 were Goodfellas exists and Sounds of the Lambs exists. Why does Backdraft exist? And the Star Wars movies exist. And it drives me not, and I don't even like them.
Right.
But this is just so amateur compared to that. And part of me is like, I can kind of see the Lynch thing, but not enough of it other than the cast.
Other than like Baron Harkonnen, really. That's really the only place where he gets to be David Lynch, is creating that character's disgusting aesthetic.
But even that compared to what Villeneuve does, I don't know. It's unwatchable. It's boring. It's confusing.
It's got me having nightmares about what could happen in the second Dune. Now, I trust Villeneuve enough to not be too worried about it.
Yeah.
But the idea of Timothée Chalamet riding a sandworm has me like, no, please don't do that.
Whatever he does is gonna, because I believe that from the little research I have done, at one point he controls the butthole worms. So, I'm sure he'll do something, but Villeneuve he'll make it good. I'm 100%.
Good. I do hope so. I have high hopes for that, but it looks really goofy here. It looks really lame. Kyle MacLachlan riding a sandworm looks really, really, really lame in this movie.
I mean, this looks like if the Sci-Fi Channel existed in the early 80s. It doesn't look like a movie. It looks like a TV show that, I don't know, it's just bad.
And you can definitely see where Jodorowsky viewed this and saw a real piece of shit, but not a movie that is David Lynch's fault. You can see where every aspect of this was seen over by De Laurentiis and the things that he wanted in there, and Lynch just kind of maybe doing a few of his things on the margins, and eventually he I'll just finish the fucking thing and just get out of here. I got better things to do.
Well, and he hadn't quite gotten the total freedom to do whatever he wanted yet. He had, Fincher had the same thing with Alien 3, and every artistic director runs into this at some point. Not everyone, but a lot of them do. Villeneuve has been very fortunate that he's gotten pretty much full creative control of what he does. But I don't know. I can't believe I finished this. Couldn't finish the subject. Part of why I probably couldn't finish the subject is because of this.
You were exhausted from this movie?
This is awful. I mean, it doesn't get much worse than this.
It feels like it's 4 hours long, and it's not. I don't know how long it is, but it feels 4 hours long while you're watching it.
It's over 2.
It feels unending, is what it feels like, because none of these characters are interesting. Kyle MacLachlan is so boring, and I love Kyle MacLachlan. He's an actor who can do a lot of stuff, but this was boring. It's just super boring.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't do this movie much good because I watched it after I saw Jodorowsky and after I'd seen the new Dune. So this movie was in trouble already.
I watched this before the new Dune. And it's so weird though, because I mean, what Star Wars has on this, even Villeneuve's movie, that Dune doesn't have, it's just Luke Skywalker is a way more memorable name. Han Solo. I mean, you can instantly separate these characters.
Right.
It's the names are a little much, and it's from the book. It's nobody's fault, but they're hard to. It takes a while at least with Villeneuve, you just kind of stay with it. You just kind of you're kind of confused early on, but you just keep going, and it's all going to come together, and that's what's amazing about what he does. And this, it's just like, what? Who's,
when you have to put this on your poster to get it to sound, I'm going to read it out. This is entirely, for those who can't see us on YouTube right now, this is actually entirely in this poster. It's like an entire Star Wars crawl on a poster. It is a world where sandworms, 1,000 feet long, guard creation's greatest treasure, the spice that prolongs life and enables the mind to fold space and slow time, where a prophecy will be fulfilled and a young leader with incredible powers will emerge to command an army of 5 million warriors in the final battle for control of a universe and its source of ultimate power, the planet called Dune. Who is standing in front of a poster long enough to read that?
It reminds me of the voiceover before Masters of the Universe when we were kids. That's how it reads to me.
So childish, right?
Yeah, and I mean, this might as well be Gollum and Globus level bad. And in some ways, it's worse than that because they
would have made it fun at least.
Hopefully. I don't know. I knew, because I saw it way back when I wanted to go through the David Lynch kick, and I was just like, he kind of disowned this movie, so it didn't bother me. But I didn't get it then. I didn't get it now. And it's amazing that this even is the same universe as what Denis Villeneuve did.
Or even the idea that Jodorowsky had is like, as convoluted as his thing was going to be and as weird as it was going to be, it's still, in my imagination, better than this.
Oh, for sure. I just have a hard time believing anything like it deserves to be up there. Not this, but the story of Dune deserves to be up there with Star Wars and probably surpass it, because it is more of a classic science fiction story from the 60s or whatever, and it just Lucas dumbed it down enough,
at some point you can stop punching Star Wars. At some point,
but it's not really. I mean, that's a good thing. I mean, he found the flaws in Dune and found a way to make it watchable for people, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's pretty impressive what Denis Villeneuve did, making that complicated world and story watchable. I just think it's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's what I know I'm punching at Star Wars. I'm definitely punching up. But Dune is such a, I don't know. I think it deserves to be in the epics like Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. And I prefer it to those movies personally. Anything else on Dune before we head to Flickchart?
Don't waste your time on this. Just watch Villeneuve's Dune. We've got an actual Dune now. You don't need, or just imagine what Jodorowsky was going to do.
Yeah.
That's even better. That's far better than this.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not going to do it, but I think it would be very cool if Villeneuve's able to get people to go back and read the book and bring some nostalgia and some history to that movie, and I don't know, make me hate it. Because I just want him to be successful. I mean, I felt the same way. I mean, I was younger, but Peter Jackson was one of those guys that I was like, this guy's amazing, and he goes off and does Lord of the Rings, and he then became more. I mean, Lord of the Rings was impressive, especially at the time. It's just way more boring.
He really can't seem to do anything else though now. Like anything else he does, it's just everything comes back to Lord of the Rings. It's like a director who's become typecast.
Well, that's what I'm worried about with Villeneuve. As much as great as Dune is and as great as Blade Runner is, he's gone deep down that path, and he
can never make another enemy.
He definitely won't make another enemy, but I'll settle for an Arrival. Or come back to the middle somewhere. We talked about the highlight of the week, Nicole Kidman in the mirror. Let's go pull up some Flickchart real quick, wherever that is at. Here we go. Okay, let's move this over here, and we've got Before Sunrise or Marnie.
Before Sunrise.
The Double, Resident Evil.
That's a Resident Evil animated movie. I've never seen that. Actually, I don't think I've seen The Double actually either. I started it once.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
Didn't finish it.
Billy Elliot, Go.
I think Billy Elliot's incredible, but I will watch Go tomorrow.
Yeah.
So if I had a choice, I'd watch Go.
I think I'm with you on that. The Tenant, Sucker Punch, 1976. The Tenant.
Never seen The Tenant. Looks intriguing though.
Yeah.
Cool poster.
Eyes Wide Shut, Sucker Punch.
Eyes Wide Shut.
I think that's what I want Villeneuve. I want Villeneuve to be Kubrick so bad.
Oh yeah.
It's bumming me out that he's like, and he's better than Nolan, but he's going down that path and he's getting deep down that road. I don't know how you come back from it. Romeo Must Die, The Nice Guys.
The Nice Guys.
I love that movie.
Yeah, that's a good one.
10 Cloverfield Lane, Grumpy Old Men.
10 Cloverfield Lane. Yeah. I love Grumpy Old Men though. It's a funny movie.
No Country for Old Men.
Never heard of that other one.
Me either. No Country for Old Men, The Karate Kid.
No Country for Old Men.
Yeah, and I love that Javier Bardem and Josh Brolin are in Dune. I kept thinking about No Country for Old Men a lot throughout that movie. I don't know why, other than just they're in it.
It's a nice thought, though.
Yeah, they're in it together briefly, aren't they, or not really? I think early on. Anyway, forget it. Spice World, Beverly Hills Ninja.
Yes, they are. Beverly Hills Ninja.
Sure.
They're both terrible, but you got to pick one.
To Live and Die in L.A., Blade Runner.
Blade Runner.
Yeah. Although I do like To Live and Die in L.A. I don't remember you being that big of a fan, if I remember right. Spy Kids 2, Office Space.
Office Space.
Absolutely. Committed, An American Werewolf in London.
I don't really like either of those movies. You have a preference?
American Werewolf in London. I lean a little bit. I want to rewatch it to see if my opinion will change. You Don't Mess with the Zohan. Scary Movie 3.
They're both like unwatchably bad.
Which,
Scary Movie 3.
yeah, probably. What if you had to throw 84 Dune in there? I think it's close to 2.5 hours. The Fighter, Orange County.
The Fighter. I have a soft spot for Orange County, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Team America, World Police, Final Fantasy, The Spirits Within.
Team America wins by default.
I feel like every time it wins by default.
Pretty much.
Gosford Park, Mission to Mars.
Gosford Park.
Children of Men, Hidalgo.
Children of Men.
Agreed. Planet of the Apes, Copland.
Planet of the Apes.
I know it's a better movie. I have a soft spot for Copland. It's weird,
Even
too.
after watching it again?
Yeah, here's the thing. Like, instantly, all I wanted was Goodfellas or something like. I wanted Stallone to win the Oscar. I wanted it to be one of the best movies ever made, and instantly I knew it wasn't. It wasn't even Heat,
right?
But there's still part of me that's like, there's some good in this. Not much, It's not a bad movie, but Planet of the Apes is better. I forever want to defend it because it's not. I don't know. It's like right there, but it's just the storyline's too weak to ever be good.
Yeah.
Spider-Man: Homecoming, The Dream Team.
Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Yeah. Jackie Chan's Project A2, The Kid.
Never seen the Jackie Chan one.
Dangerous Minds, The Kid.
Dangerous Minds. The Kid is really boring.
Is that the Bruce Willis movie?
Yeah.
Saw it in the theaters. There's a movie called The Duxorcist.
I guess.
The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Joe versus the Volcano.
I really love Joe versus the Volcano. I love that movie so much. I know you don't like it, but I would watch that tomorrow, where I would have to really think about watching The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
No, I really like watching The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, so we can flip it. That's fair.
Yeah.
Wow.
You won?
No. I thought maybe God would be good to me on this one, but then I'm like, oh yeah, you don't exist. 27 Dresses, The Godfather Part 2.
It's Godfather Part 2, but I do love 27 Dresses a lot. I would pick it over a lot of movies.
Probably these two.
Both of these two, yes.
The Bucket List, Billy Elliot.
On the bright side, I get to make up for not picking Billy Elliot before.
Yeah.
Because the Bucket List is unwatchable.
Yeah, Wolf of Wall Street, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah, Flickchart is really fucking with us. Because I can't possibly pick. So I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, even as much as I hate The Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, the reason
it's still a better made movie.
The reason I hate it is because of the effectiveness of it.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Jesus Christ.
I'm letting you decide. Armageddon or Three Amigos?
Oh, it's Three Amigos. I still hate Armageddon beyond anything.
They definitely are a coin flip for me, so I'll go with you. Poltergeist, The Indian in the Cupboard.
Poltergeist. Never heard of Anatahan.
For You I Die, Dick Tracy.
Never heard of For You I Die. Looks intriguing though.
Walking Tall, Dick Tracy.
I don't know which way you want to go. Dick Tracy's kind of hard to watch.
Yeah, The Rock's better to watch than Dustin Hoffman. Lost Highway, Zombieland, Double Tap.
Lost Highway by a lot.
And that's a bad movie.
Oh, and David Lynch's head completely up his ass is still better than that fucking piece of shit.